A guest exposed the Labour Party during a live television segment, pointing out the stark contrast between a Labour councillor who walked free and another who was jailed. This revelation drew attention to perceived inconsistencies within the party and raised serious questions about accountability. The dramatic moment resonated with viewers, highlighting the complexities of political justice and the public's demand for transparency in governance, igniting discussions about fairness within the legal system.
Is Ricky Jones, it's the status difference. Ricky Jones was an elected person of influence in that community. He had people listening who thought, yes, this is a man who knows what he's talking about, we respect him. Lucy Connolly was an anonymous mum on Twitter with, I think, very few followers when she was upset about the most heinous crime being committed. She was angry and she did a stupid thing and then took it down of her own choosing without being spoken to by the police. Surely at some point there could have been an opportunity for the case to have been reviewed and to be heard by a jury. But, you know, it's tragic, awful.
The hidden implication, whether this is true or not, but the hidden implication, Christo, would be that if you were, quote-unquote, right-wing, you were urged to plead guilty and you were going to be banged up. But if you were, in the case of Ricky Jones at the time, a Labour councillor, your legal advice would be plead not guilty, go to a jury and you'll walk.
And part of the reason I think that people on the right who had made mistakes and were wrong, incidentally, were given that advice was because the Prime Minister actually came out and called everyone who had been protesting far right. Now, bearing in mind that they were subject to charges at that point, how is that not prejudicing the trial? So, of course, their legal counsel will say, right, well, you've now been branded far right. The Prime Minister has said that, you know, you're all going to be come down on like a ton of bricks. So it is best that you plead guilty to try and mitigate any punishment you get. And I think, by the way, you're absolutely right that when you are a councillor, it's like when a police officer commits a crime. There is a higher threshold than when you are a civilian. So I think, okay, you know, he's been found not guilty, but the quote is, talking about people protesting, they are disgusting Nazi fascists. We need to cut all their throats and get rid of them all, whilst running a finger across his throat. And you look at that and you think, well, of course you think not guilty, don't you? I mean, not guilty. Of course you read that, you think not guilty.
But no elected official should ever use that sort of language. Full stop.
Well, a lot of people are going to be asking, how is Lucy Connolly in prison?
That's the point.
Her doing something wrong, and someone who arguably does something far more wrong on camera, who is an elected official, is not guilty.
Look, all for free speech and the right to offend. I probably offend a lot of people every single evening. I might have even offended some people in this room tonight, so apologies about that. However, you know, all for free speech. For me, it's not a case of, like, you know, well, OK, maybe I didn't agree with what he said, maybe he should have been allowed to say it. And he has been allowed to say it, because there's been no consequences for him. But that means that Lucy Connolly should also have been allowed to say it.